we are talking about crafting compelling content. And we've talked about this a little before. We've talked about it a roundabout ways. We've talked about what it means to be a storyteller. We've talked about our brand and what our brand story is. I mean, last week we were talking about the brand principles and how that guides our storytelling and what we create and what we share. And so I thought I would just kind of follow up with that for this morning regarding like the content that we're actually creating. So, good morning, Nicole. So I had a little Enya playing in the background while I was trying to figure all this out. So let me just stop her. We like her. She's very relaxing. Okay, so if you're here, let me know if you're watching live. If you're catching the replay, make sure you comment replay so that way I can catch up with you if you have any comments or questions and I can get back to you. So I'm Karen Kleinwort and I am your weekly host, and I kind of created this community. Well, not kind of, I did, right? So I created this community for a place for, good morning, Susan, for small business owners to come and find a space that they feel safe in, that they can share what's going on in their business. They can share questions and get feedback and really find a place where it's okay to be raw and vulnerable, to be themselves and to ask those kind of silly questions that we think in our head are silly, but in actual fact, we know a ton of other people like to have the exact same question, but don't feel confident enough to ask it. So that's what this community is about, right? So last week we were talking about our brand principles, and I shared with you for the Women's Business Resource Community over on the Village platform that our brand principles are community, accessibility, and empowerment. And that's what this group really is, that beginning, get to know what does that look and feel like and feel comfortable so you can kind of step into that. And so what we're going to talk about today is how are we crafting compelling content that's in alignment with not just who we are as an individual, but who our brand is and what our brand story is. And so to begin, right, so we're going to talk about what? We're going to talk about storytelling. We're going to talk about the visual piece of the content you're creating. And then we're going to talk about consistency. And again, remember, this is interactive. So as we're going along, post your questions. And as I see them come up, and what I'm noticing this morning is Facebook is a lot faster in showing comments on my computer where I'm doing the live stream through is actually faster than on my phone, which used to, like last week, it was reversed. So this is, I think they're finally getting caught up with the background stuff. So that's good. So post your comments, and as a collective, we will support you in getting those answers, and I'll respond. And yes, put me in the hot seat, challenge me, put questions out there, stump me, whatever, however you feel, right? We're going to work through this together. Okay, so last week, how many of you tuned into the brand principles live training, either live or caught the replay? The replay is pinned up in the featured section, as well as it's in the replay vault over on the Women's Business Resource Community. So you can catch it one or the other. How many of you got your brand principles? Nicole, you did. Awesome. Okay. Share one of your brand principles with us. Susan, did you happen to get your brand principles? I think you were on last week, if I remember correctly. Because we're going to kind of use those to help guide us today. And if you didn't catch the replay, if you weren't here last week, your brand principles are integrity. Love it. So your brand principles are more than just your values or your business or your brand values. It's kind of your guideposts as far as what you're going to do, what you're going to create, what you're going to communicate to your community, to your people, to your followers, to ensure that you stay on brand voice. So with those, okay, Susan, you were on. I thought you were. Okay, see, a whole week. This is what happens, right? Menopause brain. Foggy. Empowering, love it. Okay, so we're going to put together the crafting of your content through your brand principles. Because remember last week we talked about how it's like your filtering system. So as you're making decisions around your business, you're going to want them to filter through. So for us with the Women's Business Resource Community, we're looking at, does it meet the criteria of community? Does it support the community or the feeling of community? And, right? Is it accessible? And is it empowering? If it doesn't filter through all those three principles for us, then we're going to readdress it and maybe make a different decision. But that's how we're going to use it today. So for Susan, empowering, Nicole, integrity, as we're working through these three elements today, I want you to be thinking of how you are creating content that goes through those brand principles for you. Okay? And as you join us, if you know your brand principles, drop them in the comments. I'd love to see them, right? Share them with all of us. It kind of gives a little oomph. It has a sense of confidence behind it. So, right, we're impeccable with our words. So that's really important. Okay, storytelling. So we've talked about storytelling before. We've talked about what it means to share, right? We talked about having an authentic voice. We've talked about invoking emotion. And that's super important as well, because we know when we share our content, we're doing what? We are educating, we're inspiring, right? One of those two things, and this isn't, we're not talking about the call to action element, we're talking about the actual content itself. So as you're creating it, what is your sole purpose? Are you educating from this piece, or are you inspiring, right? So educating means you're going to share knowledge, you're going to share expertise, you're going to share a value as far as like content that somebody might find valuable. It's going to invoke an inspiration to what? To engage, to take action. So that way when you put your call to action into place within your content, they're educated enough that they want to take action, or they're inspired enough that they want to take action. Okay? So those are the two pieces behind all the content that you're going to be creating. So talking about storytelling, what does it mean to tell a story? It means we're sharing something personal. We're sharing something that might make us vulnerable. We're sharing something in a manner that invokes emotion from somebody. Because what are the three things that clients or customers need to kind of go through before they actually take action? Do you guys remember? It might have been a while. Look, and I had my Tito mug today, so that's part of my brand story, right? So do you remember? The like, the know, like, and trust. Good morning, Maria. So we want people to know us, to like us, trust us, for them to then take action. And they're only going to know that if they know us as an individual, as a person, as a brand. And some of you might be thinking, yeah, but like, let's use Nike as an example, right? They're this big brand. What's their story? Is it personal? Is it vulnerable? Well, if you actually watch their marketing, it's all about the personal story, the personal empowerment. So it really is personal, because we see ourselves in some of those posts that they share, in some of their advertisements, right? So even the big brands that have the deepest pockets for advertising, they're still doing that know, like, and trust element. They're still doing the education. They're still doing the inspiring pieces to all of their marketing, all of their advertisement. So what you guys are doing is really no different. It's just on a different scale, right? So your storytelling, who are you talking to? You're talking to your customers, your clients. Are you talking to them, or are you talking with them? So when we're telling a story, we're sharing something that is normally engaging, right? And we learn by doing, we learn by experimenting, right? Kind of, we can talk about the A/B testing where we put out one type of post versus another type of post and see what is a better engagement, what a better response is. So we know through testing how we're speaking with them. So sharing your information, sharing your products, sharing your services comes from a place that you are truly that heart-centered business where you're speaking with them, you're engaging with them, because that's another big piece, right? When we're talking about creating content, it's more than just putting something up and posting and kind of walking away. And I include myself in that, so just know. Just know, right? Like, I know some of the things I need to work on, and that engagement piece is definitely one of them. Right? I need to do better, and I am doing better. I actually started doing better this morning. This was my goal starting today. So, right, so storytelling, it's personal. It's relatable. And so when you dive into your avatar and you start to know who they are, you know where they are, you know the languages that they respond to, the emojis they respond to, right? In the Lunch and Learn last week, we kind of dove into getting to know our avatar, and we talked about the use of emojis. And we all kind of chuckled because we were like, oh yeah, you can tell who uses AI because it's full of emojis. So on one hand, it's a visual piece, but on the other hand, too much is too much. And on Thursday, I did a training on using AI, right, ChatGPT, ethically with integrity, and how to use that with transparency. And we also talked about the emoji piece. And so knowing your client well enough to say, they're going to respond. Maria says, I am loving using the emojis, right? Okay, so I'm going to just tell a little side story. So Maria was in the Lunch and Learn last week. And so for those that don't know, she's a Spanish translator and coaches people on language skills, right? So I said to her, I'm like, when I think of Maria, I think of the lady in the red dress emoji, because to me, she's the Spanish dancer. And we kind of had a good chuckle about it, right? Because for me, that's the visual. Like when I see that, and I use it in my own stuff, right? In my own content, because I'm thinking of an empowered woman dancing free and limitless, right? But when I see her name and I see that emoji, I completely go a different direction with what that emoji stands for. So that's why when you're telling a story, you have to know who you're talking to. You have to know what resonates with them. And you only know that by knowing who you're talking to. So storytelling is personal. It's being vulnerable. It's sharing pieces about you that people can relate to, that's memorable, that they can walk away and go, oh, okay, right? And I'm going to guarantee you that most of you, whether you're watching this live or in the replay, you're gonna think of that Spanish, you're gonna think of that lady in the red dress, and you're gonna think Spanish dancer, just because of this live training, because you've made that connection. There was the laughter, so there was an emotional response, right? So you're gonna start to see how you respond to emojis, right? Yeah, it's so true. So and everybody has a different, right? We have our own filters how those visuals come through. So your storytelling, what else do you want to do with your storytelling? What's another goal with storytelling? You begin to involve the reader. You want to pull them into your story, right? They don't want to just get an engagement where they're typing back or making comments. You want them to feel, right, that emotional response, but feel like they are in the story with you, that they're following along as it's unfolding. And some of you are going, well, that's great, but I'm only putting in like a short caption. I'm not putting in like this 500-word caption. And you'd be right, but there's still a story, right? There's still a story, even if you're only putting like 25 to 50 words, if you think of Twitter or X, I should say, right? You have a very short window of opportunity to tell a story that has to invoke an emotion, a response, a connection. So, storytelling, memorable, relatable, personal. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, right? The second one is the visual, and this goes along with that storytelling. So, when you're telling a story, right, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we think of young children. So when I'd be reading with my children when they were young, before they were actual readers, it was picture books where we made up the words to go along with the pictures. So think of what are the visuals you're using that tells a story, that your caption expands on that story or provides clarity to the story that your visual is telling. And we're all going to have a different interpretation, right? If you've ever gone to an art gallery and you've gone through and you've seen pictures and paintings, and you have one version of what the story is being told, and whoever you're with might say, oh, I didn't see that. I saw something different. I felt something different. Right? So your visual needs to match your story that's in the caption to provide clarity and expand on that. So an example is PowerPoint presentations. If you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, do you put all of your information on the slide that's up on the screen for people to see? No, it's the bullet points. Because what happens if there's too much on the screen? People go blind. They stop paying attention. They're like, oh, too much, overload. I can't even pay attention. My brain's on overload right now. I can't, right? So your visual has to be what captures their attention long enough where they're going to read the supporting caption that's going to give them clarity, that's going to bring engagement, that's going to have a call to action. So when we're talking visual, right, there's this people, and I'm gonna point the finger at myself here. I was never comfortable on camera. So to get me in front of the camera, and I might have mentioned this in a past training when we were talking about content and things, that as a kid, there would be all of us cousins, and we'd always do, the age lineup, right? Short, youngest to the oldest, and that normally was like a height thing. And there was 9 times out of 10, I was backwards. Like I did not want to be on camera. And that was a standing joke with all my cousins. So whenever we get together as a family, as cousins, and we do the family picture, it's, okay, Karen, turn around, right? Like that is still a standing joke like 50 years later. So visual is important. For me, it was a confidence thing. And what pushed me through is I just forced myself. I challenged myself to say, one, I'm going to go live in this group every Tuesday morning. And if you watch my live streams, I haven't posted all the replays yet in the replay vault, but from back in July to now, they're completely different. Like my confidence is different. I laugh at myself more. I'm not so caught up in the smaller details, right? Like before I would have been like, kind of, it's over on the side, right? Like the whole, like I can't do it. Like, see, right there. Yeah. Like that would bother me. Like I'd be totally like, how do I clear off my desk? I can't let them see me have a messy desk, right? So it's confidence. So people want to be able to know you. They're only going to know you if they see you. And there are tons of ways that you can do faceless reels and faceless posts, absolutely. But in the end, if your product or service has a personal connection, so for me with business coaching, right, you need to know who you're talking to. You need to know who you're about to go into quote unquote business with, that you're going to partner with. And you're not going to know me if I don't show my face, if I don't share my voice. So understanding who is your perfect client and how you're connecting with them with the visual at some point you have to start showing yourself. You have to start showing up. So the next level for me is actually putting together reels and using the footage from all these live streams, right? So again, we're talking about creating content. You don't want to have to keep recreating. So if there's a way for you to take what you've already created and repackage it so it looks a little different, feels a little different, saves you time and energy, but it allows you to be, and this is the third piece, right? The consistency piece. It allows you to be consistent with your voice and brand, and your potential customers and clients begin to say, oh, there she is. Oh, look. And they start to recognize you and the value that you're going to bring, right? So in the comments, how many of you currently do like me posts where you're showing your face or you're talking or you're recording? You can just put me. You don't have to explain, but you can just say, I do, right? How many of you are putting your face out for your brand? Nobody? So this might be the challenge that we'll have, and we'll do a check-in. Me a little, Susan says. Working on that as we speak, yeah. So, so this is the part. What and how are you comfortable showing up? Portrays your confidence. Tells a story, right? We go back to that number one of storytelling. So by showing up, it's telling a story. The more you show up, the stronger your story is. So when we're talking consistency, and we've talked about this before, consistency, you get to set the consistency. So how many of you, what's your, let's say an example, what's your schedule right now or your consistency rate of just static posts, like not stories, not reels, just your static post where it's like an image that shows up with a caption, with a call to action? How many of you are doing it like daily or every other day or 3 times a week or once a week? Because remember, you get to set the consistency. So if you are doing it daily, be consistent. If you're doing it Monday through Friday, be consistent. Once a week, be consistent. Your followers, your people, are going to get to know your consistency. So, I've been pretty consistent of posting daily, Monday through Friday. And random. I know consistency is important, but still needing to make that happen. So Susan, what seems to be holding you back from doing something more consistent? And when you say random, are you saying that sometimes it's once a week, sometimes it's 3 times a week, sometimes it's daily? So Maria says she's still doing daily now, but it still varies. Okay. So varying from week to week or month to month. So I'm still all over the place. Okay. So now what you want to do, so one of the things, Susan, that you're going to want to be looking at is what is realistic for you. Remember when we talk goal setting, right, that whole SMART acronym, we put it in play right here. What is an easy expectation for you to fulfill? What doesn't cause stress but allows you to be consistent so you can be successful? Is it saying, I'm only going to post Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I'm going to post 3 times a week, static post, and I'm just going to do that. Or I'm going to just post every Tuesday. What feels good? And again, consistency matters, but your consistency that fits into your routine, is even more important. So with the Meta Business Suite, you're able to pre-schedule everything now. Like they've kind of beefed that up a little bit. So you can schedule stories, you can schedule, I think you can schedule reels through there. I'd have to take a look now. I don't remember. But you can do posts all the way out, I think it is 30 days you can pre-schedule. So that's something to consider. If you know you want to be consistent twice a week, 3 times a week, figure out a day that you can then do a batch creation and pre-schedule those. Okay? That's definitely going to be something to help you stay consistent. What other tools do you guys have in your toolbox to help you be consistent? Having a scheduler like Business Suite is one. If you use, I know Canva, you can pre-schedule. I'm a hyper-focuser, Susan says. When I am focused on an area, I feel like I do an amazing job on that task, but as soon as I shift my focus, my previous gets set aside. Okay, and you're not alone. I'm going to tell you, Susan, you are not alone. Because as a small business owner, and I was actually talking with my husband last night, right? We wear so many hats. It's not like we have this, Nike type budget where we can have somebody just do all the social media or just do all the content creation or just do all the videographing for reels and stories, right? We don't have that kind of budget. So we have to, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, right? You're either going to invest your time or you're going to invest money. And as a small business owner, 9 times out of 10, it's our time that we're investing. So, Susan, what are some strategies that you might be able to use to help you kind of stay focused, move on to the next task, and then come back to it? Or do you set yourself up and say, I'm actually only going to do a post a week. So my batch is I'm going to create 4 pieces of content and I'm going to pre-schedule them out every Monday for the next month. And then the last Friday of the month, you're going to set aside time to create 4 more pieces of content and you're going to pre-schedule those 4 for the next month. Until you kind of get into a routine where you can go, oh, now I can post twice a week. Now I can post 3 times a week. Because you're getting more efficient with your skill set. So an example is I've committed to myself to doing more reels, like we talked about, right? Taking snippets from all these live trainings and repurposing them. Well, I have to get really good at splicing the video and splicing the audio, right? So my first attempt was horrible because the visual did not match the audio, and it was horrible. But it was my first attempt at learning how to splice audio and splice the video piece, where I extract the audio, so it's just the audio and not the video piece, right? So I was teaching myself. Well, then I kind of figured it out, and now I have a system where I know how to efficiently extract the audio and efficiently get the video into like a reel that I can post at a later time, right? So it's giving yourself permission to screw up. It's giving yourself permission to make mistakes and laugh at yourself. So Maria says, I think I would post more consistently if I wasn't too over being on social media all the time. What is the best way to beat this? Are you mean like the doom scrolling, Maria? Where you're like just kind of get lost in the doom scrolling where you're just like, oh, look at all this. Then Susan says, I'm on week 2 of using Trello to help me do batches of tasks, but hoping to do better. So Susan, again, that's a learning curve. So you're in the middle of a learning curve with Trello and how to use that as an organizational tool and a task kind of control element where you can create the content, and you can be filling in the content in Trello, where you can then copy and paste it into however you're going to post it. So Maria says yes, it's the doom scrolling. So I would recommend a timer. So side story about the whole doom scrolling. So I had to step in, right? So I have a 13. She'll be 13 on Friday. She misused her phone, and I took it away. So for the last 10 days, she's not had her cell phone. She has not had any of her, communication tools, nothing that she uses her cell phone for. No calendar, no nothing. And she said to me last night, and you'll all appreciate this, think of it because it's coming from a 13-year-old. She goes, when I get my phone back, I'm going to remove some of my apps. And I was like, oh, how come? And she goes, because we never make eye contact. I said, what do you mean? She goes, like, I'm sitting there at the lunch table with my friends, and they're all like scrolling TikTok and Snapchat, and nobody's talking to each other. She goes, it was horrible. Like, nobody's making eye contact. And she goes, and I'm trying to talk to them, and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to multitask. I'm going to talk to you while I'm doom scrolling. So the gift she was given by me being the bad mom and taking her phone away is what? She's realized the doom scrolling is actually not supportive. It doesn't allow her to engage in her present life, right? So Maria, so social media for business and for fun. So then you're going to need to set up parameters for yourself. What are your boundaries? And what does the time look like? So I have on my phone, you can set time limits on different apps. And I'm not sure, it's called digital health, maybe. It depends on the type of phone you use. I have a Samsung. And I can set, like, I want to have 3 hours of Facebook a day. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, from a business perspective, I'm going to be on Facebook maybe an hour from an interaction on my cell phone and not my computer, right? So then it'll shut off Facebook. It will shut it down for me if I hit my limit that day. And it won't unlock Facebook until the next day. So you can start retraining yourself that way. You can also set your phone up to give you a weekly digital health report where it will say, you used your phone 3 hours less than last week or 2 hours more than the previous week. These are some of the things you can do to change that habit. So there are tools on your cell phones that can help you. The other thing is be really diligent with your time blocking, right? Like, I'm only going to do my business social interactions from 10 to 10:15. When 10:15 hits, the alarm goes off and I stop and I redirect myself, right? But using like Trello is a great tool, Susan. Once you really get to use it, you'll start to realize how useful it will be to help you stay on task, because you can slide the cards from, in progress to done, etc., right? So then you don't have to worry, but it kind of releases your stress of going, did I get it done? Did I finish the project? Did I finish what I was supposed to do, right? So getting back on crafting content, right, that's compelling, we were talking about storytelling, and this is all part of it, right? So when you're using your social media to do market research, right, we talked about kind of quote unquote doing the Facebook, Instagram stalking of your perfect client to get a clarity around who they are and what they like and how they interact. You want to make sure that you understand the verbiage they're using and responding to, because that wants to be integrated into your storytelling, right? You want to integrate it into the visual elements. Your storytelling in the caption has to support the visual storytelling. And then being consistent. What is your consistent piece, right? So for me, I kind of set myself up for a challenge for the Women's Business Resource community to be able to do your daily static posts. And then within 15 minutes of them being posted as a static post, I share them as a story. And then I'm doing 3 times a week the carousels, and then every other day for reels. Now that I've got my system in place. So for me, for the month of May, that's my personal challenge, is how do I be more consistently showing up in different venues, in different ways for my audience, then to allow myself to say, now I can spend my 10 minutes of engagement. So I share the static post as a story and I engage for 10 minutes. And then I put my phone away, right? And then the next time I know I have a static post going up or a carousel going up at whatever time it is, then I know I jump back on, share it as a story, engage for 10 minutes. So that's my personal cues and how I'm setting myself up for success, right? What works for you is what's going to work for you. You're only going to know that by trial and error, right? Please don't ask me how many times I tried to figure this consistency of engagement piece out. It's been over a year, right? Trial and error, life happens, kids happen, all that fun stuff, right? So just know you've got to give yourself grace and space to be consistent while you're learning what consistency is for you and what is realistic for you. So, right, that's my goal, is to do better. I've set myself up a goal, do better in engagement. Some days I'm not going to do so well. Other days I'm going to do really well. So now I'm going to say at the end of May, I'm going to look back and say, what did I do? How did I do? And on average, was I more engaging than I was in April? And if I was, success, right? So know what metric you're going to align yourself to set yourself up for success as well. Questions about storytelling, questions about the visual element, questions about consistency. I think we kind of hammered on consistency pretty well, but any questions about the storytelling? Any questions about the visual? Okay. So again, drop them in the comments. If I don't see them and don't respond within 24 hours, please slide into my DMs and let me know that you've posted a comment so I can come out and see those. All right, so it's Mother's Day. Whether you're a mother of two-legged humans or four-legged fur babies, happy early Mother's Day. And I am also wanting to offer you guys, because it is Mother's Day, a Mother's Day special. So what I'm offering is, with the 6-month coaching program, that everybody's going to receive an extra 2 months. So let me know. I'll drop the link in here to the Pathways to Success program where you can sign up. I have, I think, available 4 spots opened up. So if you want in, now's the time to take advantage of that. And then also remember, there is the referral program. So as a either C-suiter or a neighbor within the Women's Business Resource Community, if you refer another member, as long as they're a member, you get 10% of whatever their fee is, as long as they are a member and as long as you are a member. So I wanted to share that with you. Thank you, as always, for being here and for showing up. Thank you for supporting me, and just be willing to put yourselves out there and learn and expand your own knowledge. All right. I think that's it. I don't see other questions coming up. I think we're good. Okay. I think we're good. All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a beautiful day, and I will catch you on the flip side. You're welcome, Susan.